Walk into any Asian grocery store in Houston, Los Angeles, or New York, and you will find it in the produce section. Crisp hollow stems, dark arrow-shaped leaves. It smells faintly of fresh water and soil. The sign above the bin says two things: the name in 3 languages and the price, $1.29 a bunch. The cashier does not ask for identification. Nobody checks your zip code. You carry it home in a paper bag and cook it in a hot pan with garlic, and the thing is done in 90 seconds. Now drive 40 miles outside the city. In 14 states, growing that exact plant is a federal offense. Welcome to the vault. Think about your grocery bill. The bag of baby spinach that goes limp by Thursday cost you $4. The iron supplement on your bathroom shelf costs $38 a month. The omega-3 capsules sitting next to it, another $22. If you have children who need calcium without dairy, you have probably tried fortified juices at $5 a carton. Add it across a year and the number is uncomfortable. Now, consider this. The plant in that Asian market bin contains more iron per 100 grams than spinach, more calcium than the same volume of cow's milk, more beta-carotene than carrots, more protein per calorie than most leafy greens currently sitting in the premium section of your supermarket. It grows in standing water, in drainage ditches, in the margins of rivers that nobody owns. It propagates from a single cutting dropped in soil. It requires no fertilizer, no pesticide, no greenhouse, no irrigation system. You are spending $40 a month on an iron supplement for a mineral this plant delivers free from a crack in a drainage ditch. That is not a metaphor. That is the USDA nutritional database. Read carefully. The plant is Ipomoea aquatica. It has between 3 and 4 dozen common names depending on the country. In the Philippines, it is called kangkong. In China, it has been cultivated for at least 2,000 years. In Vietnam, it fed armies during conflicts that American generals could not resolve. In Southeast Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, and South America, it is not a specialty ingredient. It is a staple, a survival crop. The kind of plant that appears when a family has nothing else and keeps them alive until something better arrives. 3 billion people is not a marketing figure. It is the estimated number of humans who consume Ipomoea aquatica as a regular part of their diet, according to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, the FAO. Not a blogger, not a supplement company, the United Nations agricultural body. In 1974, the United States Federal Noxious Weed Act was passed. The legislation was designed to prevent invasive plant species from threatening domestic agricultural productivity. Ipomoea aquatica was placed on the federal noxious weed list. The classification gave individual states the authority to prohibit its cultivation entirely. By the late 1980s, 14 states had done exactly that: Florida, California, Hawaii, Arizona, Texas. States with some of the largest populations of people from cultures where this plant is as ordinary as iceberg lettuce. Here is the document that changes the temperature of this story. In 1999, the USDA Agricultural Research Service published a comparative nutritional analysis of leafy green vegetables grown under American conditions. Ipomoea aquatica appeared in the data. The analysis recorded iron content at levels exceeding domestic spinach, calcium at levels comparable to fortified dairy alternatives, beta-carotene at concentrations above those of commercial carrots. The document did not disappear. It is still in the USDA database. You can read it today. What the USDA did not do is reconcile that nutritional panel with the federal noxious weed classification sitting 4 entries to the left in the same regulatory framework. In the same database where the USDA lists it as a federal noxious weed, there is a nutritional panel showing it contains more beta-carotene than carrots. Nobody appears to have noticed the contradiction in print, or if they noticed, nobody resolved it. In 2008, the Asian Pacific Journal of Tropical Biomedicine published a review of Ipomoea aquatica studies conducted across 6 countries. The review confirmed anti-inflammatory properties, antioxidant activity, and measurable effects on glycemic response in animal models. The federal noxious weed classification did not change. The nutritional evidence mounted. The legal status did not move. Iron. 100 grams of raw Ipomoea aquatica contains approximately 2.5 milligrams of iron, is more than the same weight of raw spinach at 2.1 milligrams, according to the USDA Food Data Central Database. The mechanism behind this number matters. The iron in this plant arrives alongside a vitamin C concentration that significantly improves non-heme iron absorption, meaning the body extracts more of what is actually there, not just the figure on a nutrition label. Calcium. 100 grams delivers approximately 77 milligrams. That is comparable to semi-skimmed milk by volume. The calcium does not arrive with the saturated fat content of dairy or the industrial processing requirements of fortified alternatives. Beta-carotene converts to vitamin A inside the body. This plant carries it at concentrations between 6,300 and 8,900 micrograms per 100 grams in sunlight-grown specimens, documented in a 2003 study published in the Journal of Food Composition and Analysis. Commercial carrots average approximately 8,285 micrograms. The numbers are equivalent. The price is not. Protein. 3 to 4 grams per 100 gram serving. For a leafy green grown in standing water with zero agricultural input, that figure is structurally competitive with spinach, kale, and chard. 3 crops that collectively represent a multi-billion-dollar premium produce category. The anti-inflammatory data is more recent. A 2019 review in the journal Nutrients identified flavonoid compounds in Ipomoea aquatica that inhibit the production of pro-inflammatory cytokines under laboratory conditions. The same cytokine pathways are the molecular targets of several patented anti-inflammatory compounds currently generating combined annual revenues exceeding $4 billion. 7 peer-reviewed studies, same conclusion. Nobody funded an eighth. The glycemic data runs across 2 decades. Animal models published across 6 institutions between 2001 and 2018 showed measurable effects on blood glucose regulation. Not one of those studies proceeded to a human clinical trial funded by a U.S. institution. The plant is free. The global insulin market is worth over $50 billion annually. Those are 2 separate facts. The distance between them is not an accident. It is a documented financial structure that rewards the absence of research into anything it cannot patent. In 2019, the U.S. herbicide market was valued at approximately $11 billion. A significant portion of that revenue flows from aquatic herbicide products, chemicals formulated specifically to remove plants from waterways, irrigation channels, and drainage infrastructure. Ipomoea aquatica is a primary target species on the application list. The herbicide applied to remove it from Florida waterways alone generates more annual revenue than the entire domestic fresh leafy greens market it would structurally replace. Read that sentence again. The federal noxious weed classification does not generate herbicide revenue directly, but it creates the regulatory environment in which chemical removal becomes the legally sanctioned and officially recommended response to the plant's presence. An agricultural extension officer in Florida cannot tell a farmer to harvest and sell the crop growing at the edge of their irrigation ditch. They can direct them to a licensed chemical supplier. The chemical supplier is not listed in the USDA nutritional database. The plant is. In states where water spinach is classified as invasive, Asian and Latin American grocery chains import the product from permitted growers in unrestricted regions and from international suppliers in Southeast Asia. The domestic consumer pays the import price. The domestic farmer cannot grow it without a federal permit that takes months to obtain and requires annual renewal with documented containment protocols. A crop that has fed 3 billion people for 2,000 years without agricultural infrastructure now requires government paperwork to grow in the nation that imports it from the countries it banned it in. That is not a metaphor. That is import and trade data from the USDA Foreign Agricultural Service. The question at the center of this is genuinely simple. If the plant is safe enough to import and sell in every major American city, what exactly is the cultivation ban protecting? The legal picture is navigable if you know where to stand. Ipomoea aquatica is classified as a federal noxious weed, which means interstate transport of the plant material, and seed is restricted without a federal permit. Individual states set their own cultivation rules on top of that federal baseline. In states without a specific state-level prohibition, including most of the Northeast, the Midwest, and the Pacific Northwest outside California, you can legally grow this plant in a contained environment without a permit. Container cultivation is the critical legal distinction. A 5-gallon bucket, a raised bed with a solid liner, a barrel with drainage fully controlled. Any contained system that physically prevents the plant from reaching natural waterways satisfies the biological concern the federal classification is actually based on: this plant's documented capacity to spread aggressively in open water systems. The containment concern is real. The nutritional suppression that came bundled with it is the part that has no scientific justification. Find the seeds through reputable Asian seed suppliers. Multiple established companies ship them legally to states without a cultivation ban. Search for the variety labeled Ipomoea, aquatica, or water spinach. It is also sold under the names ong choy, morning glory vegetable, and swamp cabbage depending on the supplier's regional origin. Place your container in a location that receives a minimum of 6 hours of direct sunlight daily. Fill with standard potting mix kept consistently moist. This plant is adapted to wet conditions and does not tolerate dry soil. Transplant seedlings or rooted stem cuttings at 6-inch spacing. In a 5-gallon bucket on a balcony that receives 6 hours of sun, this plant will outproduce any spinach you have ever grown. First harvest is possible within 3 to 4 weeks of transplanting. Cut the stems above the second visible node. The plant regrows from that point. This is not a one-season crop. This is a cut-and-come-again system that runs as long as the temperature stays above 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Before you plant anything, confirm the specific regulations in your state and county with your local agricultural extension service. Rules change. County-level restrictions sometimes exceed state law. This video is informational and does not constitute legal or agricultural advice. Your local extension service is free, staffed by people whose entire job is to answer exactly this question, and reachable by phone or email within 1 business day in most counties. Use it. What you do with that conversation belongs entirely to you. There is a version of this story where the ending is cynical. The plant got classified, the herbicide companies got paid, and nothing changed. That version is technically accurate about the past. It is not accurate about the present. The present looks like this. You can walk into a store in any major American city and buy this plant for $1.29. You can cook it in 90 seconds. You can grow it legally in most of this country in a container on a surface you already own. The institutional wall built around it has not disappeared, but it has become irrelevant to the individual who knows the wall is there and why it was built. What changed was not the law. The law is the same law it was in 1974. What changed is what you now know about that law and the financial logic underneath it. The $1.29 you spent at the Asian market was, without knowing it, an act of quiet defiance against a classification that has no nutritional basis whatsoever. Now you know that. The plant has not changed. What it costs to grow has not changed. The 3 billion people eating it daily did not need a federal regulatory framework to tell them it was safe. They needed land and water, both of which exist in virtually every state currently on the list that has banned it. Share this video. Not because a share helps an algorithm. It does, but that is not the reason. Share it because someone in your network is spending $40 a month on an iron supplement that replicates what this plant provides for free, and they have no idea that the supplement industry and the regulatory framework that makes the free version difficult to grow were constructed at the same time, all by the same economic logic, in service of the same financial outcome. Subscribe, because next week the vault opens on a different file entirely. This one is older. It involves a grain. The Aztec Empire cultivated it at scale and fed millions on it for 300 years without a single synthetic input. Today, the USDA lists it as a noxious weed in 23 states. The suppression mechanism is different from what you heard today. The financial architecture behind it is structurally identical. The grain is still growing in every field they have not managed to reach. And neither has anything they have done to this plant. No classification, no herbicide contract, no permit requirement. change the fact that 3 billion people ate it this morning without asking anyone's permission. Neither should you.